I tell a story about my mother, okay, who was a politician for many years, and she's just turning 90 in June. I made a short animated film about her called Lever, and it's about the lever in the old style voting booths. She decides in West Philadelphia to become a poll watcher, the basic entity of democracy.
First time I voted in Philadelphia was 1961, and I had not used the old voting machines. They had to come and help me, and the guy who came and helped me put his hand in the curtain and voted for himself. And I was none the wiser, being such a neophyte. And he was a state senator. His name was MacReesh, Tom MacReesh, except that I realized when I got back that this was an incorrect thing to do and that voting should be honest.
We need a city council that cares more about people than about politics.
Mary Goldman, Democrat for council, lever number 145.
Welcome to Behind Truth, Lost at Sea. I'm Mark Sylvester. He's Jonathan Goldman. Art is political. It always has been. And John has been a social activist for 45 years. Right now, that activism is taking the form of a 48-foot sculpture floating from Cape Cod all the way down to Washington, D.C., 8 weeks before the midterms. So the question is, what do artists actually owe a democracy in crisis? John, welcome back to the show. When I say that, what's your first thought to that?
I really do believe that artists, as well as any citizen, has a job, and that's to keep their mouth open, not closed. They are to be aware of their surroundings, their world, and not be subjecting themselves to the ostracization of all the media overwhelming them so that they bury their heads in the sand. We need, if we want anything to change, we need activism. We need to be proactive about it. And there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah.
A lot of noise, a lot, you've said it in past episodes, there's a lot of rage. And that's because people are angry. They're fed up with being lied to. And I am too, and I have been for a very long time. I mean, watching what goes on and making sure that it is, up to snuff.
Mhm.
So he showed her. And what he did was he pulled her into the booth, closed the curtain, which activates the machine, and then he started going, you vote by sliding these little panels over. And he does it to his choice, meaning that he's voted without it being attached to anybody who is actually
A
voting.
voter.
A voter. Yes, exactly. And she said, there's something categorically wrong about this. And that became her whole reason for being involved in politics
No
in the
kidding.
first place. And I felt that was very powerful to me because it's a simple thing. It's
Yeah.
your act of being involved,
Yeah. Yeah.
of listening,
Yeah.
of keeping your eyes open. It's not as dangerous as we are now on the streets of Minneapolis, where you can take your life in your hands. It's a different thing, but it's just as important because the democracy depends on that kind of engagement. And so, yeah, how's
Well,
that for an answer?
there. I can count on you for awesome answers.
Well, you're welcome.
So notwithstanding, we queued this up to say that art and politics at this point are intertwined. However, there has been this long tradition of artists staying out of politics, quote, let the work speak for itself. But you rejected that. Why is silence not an option now?
because any choice that you make is a choice of political influence. You make a decision whether, I'm not saying whether you're choosing rooibos or mint tea. I'm talking I'm talking about whether you're trying to make a decision about a belief system, about what you think is beneficial to others. You know, when somebody puts up a platform, a political platform,
Yeah.
it is to explain to you what you intend to do with this highly precious thing called a vote. So if you're going to
Mm,
get my vote,
mm,
you need to prove to me that your platform is consistent with my beliefs.
right.
Okay. It's the
Right.
same thing as
Right.
understanding what the truth is. You know, I'm trying to basically say that we make choices that are political because of our intended outcome.
So y- when you said we make this choice, it got me thinking about at because I love studying young people, especially junior high, high school age, when we I think it's around that age we start to have this notion that I can have a choice of what I believe. It may be what my parents believe because I'm in their home, but it may be another thing that I'm exposed to when I make that choice. And I'm curious, when did you when did you make the choice to have a voice and let your art represent your voice? Because that's kind of been your whole life. But was there a point? Was it your mom and her activism, or what was it?
It's
I'm just
historical.
curious.
I mean, you know, my family has long been activists.
Oh,
My father, as a scientist, cured cleft palate neonatally and biochemically, and way before the genetic revolution of Craig Ventnor and the Genome Project. You know, so we're always at the leading edge. My middle brother, with his book The Truth About Where You Live, he basically did the research that proved that environmental racism is extensive everywhere.
mhm.
And so these, and my grandmother, when and becoming on Nixon's enemies list, was kind of a gadfly, a gadfly response.
So, John, this project is explicitly nonpartisan, but it's not neutral. What's the difference, and why does that distinction matter to you?
Because I think we have a lot of problems in the world.
Mm.
Um, some that we can solve, and some that are still huge challenges. But we all are in this together. So being able to say one party has the right road is kind of antediluvian. It's old. It's not something that really has relevance today. We are all on the same boat, and that boat has holes in it. And how are we going to work together to figure out how to make the putty to stick those fingers in those holes? I mean, we really have to do that. And yet we have a lot of noise, we have a lot of ego, and the ego is really run rampant. And if everything is based on a narcissist's whim, it has no regard for partisanry, really. It has to just do with bloviation, or, you know, just, you know, talking, because you want to be the center of attention. You want your name in the newspaper every column, every day. And that's where we are. What it does is it saturates the media sphere, and we end up not having, as the people, in other words, for the government, I mean, for the people, the government for the people, by the
By the
people,
people.
and we're not that anymore if it's all done by whim. This war, for example, I have, it's not a partisan thing, although in the structure of our government right now, it is a non-functioning bifurcation that is unevenly weighted and basically has come to a grand stop. Even amidst the idea that, back to the voting, that the voting is under attack.
Yeah.
That today there is legislation before the Senate that basically is trying to change how we vote, that we have to prove with an image or some card that says we are American. And we have tried for so long to not have to do that. This goes back to the poll tax in England.
Right.
It goes back to the historical examples all throughout Europe of the inability for certain people, Jews, for example, to not have value as citizens. They are chattel in essence until a certain point. And that certainly happened in this country and continues to happen based on race lines. And I'm reading this book by my cousin, which I think is fascinating because it presents a Civil War time where Republicans and Democrats were in exactly the opposite of where they are today. Democrats were the pro-slavery, and the Republicans were abolitionists.
Right.
And those two changes, but what they would do is the same kinds of uh, trajectory of message, and that is the other guy's bad. The other guy doesn't understand us, in this case, the South. Reconstruction is onerous to the South. And slavery is really the way the economy works worldwide.
So
Doesn't justify it, but it's backwards.
well, one of the things you bring up, and I'll close this question up, that there's always been a "I'm right, you're wrong." It goes all the way back to the big, probably Cain and Abel. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, you need to believe my way, and you're wrong. So that just feels like it's part of the human condition, that there's going to be that. But now we have weapons to back that up, whether we're right or wrong.
And
One
not
of
only
the
just weapons, we have weapons that will end it.
Right. Yeah. 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 We do. So I don't want to get too dark.
Right. But these are, look, the point of that is that it's not easy to face the truth. It's not easy to tell the truth.
There it
It's
is.
not,
There it
it's
is.
easier to lie. And that's where we are.
There it
And if
is.
you basically get people so pissed off that they have been lied to, in my family, it really is always about whether you're too big for your britches,
Uh-huh.
okay, and you need to be taken down, okay, because humility, like for the Inuit, is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you think you're more important than the clan, let's say, then you get some degree of ostracization. You're not kicked out, but you're basically said, okay, you're going to go that way. We're going to shun you.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Exactly.
So
That's right.
democracy infrastructure is, if we think about the infrastructure, right? It's roads, but it's also courts and elections. And you're
Oh, yeah.
arguing that public art belongs on that list. Make the case.
Okay, so public art is very complicated. Okay, I think of two cities specifically in deep contrast with each other. And they're not New York. They're Philadelphia and Boston. Boston traditionally had terrible or much fewer examples of public art, and much of it very, very influenced by 19th century modalities. Um, with the advent of social practice in the last 30, 40 years, there's a lot of change in how art can be created in an activist format. You make something that makes people think, okay? But public art often means that it is publicly funded. That means that it's a city or it's some
Right, 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 right,
grant
right, right,
that
right,
it
right,
is competed for to be able to
right.
make.
That's
I
how it
mean,
is here in Santa Barbara. Same, same.
right. So, and it's changed a lot over the years. Back in the 80s, there was a major push for major new buildings being constructed, that a certain percentage of that building cost be allocated to art,
Mm.
which was at least that was what it was back then. I don't think it happens anymore, but you know, it became an important part of making sure that the art was still integral to a sense of making place. Okay. And to my mind, um, Philadelphia has a much longer history. For example, one of the main thoroughfares that leads right to the Second Empire, wonderful City Hall with
Yeah,
William Penn on the top of it.
yeah,
William Penn was made by Sandy Calder, Alexander Calder's grandfather. Okay, so each mile there's a different member of the Calder family as sculptors representing huge public artworks. So you've got Billy Penn on the top of the city hall, which used to be the height restriction for any other new modern building, which is interesting until uh until about the 90s, when a lot of the cityscape had changed its look. Um, and you go all the way to the museum, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and in there is Alexander Calder's mobiles. So you have all these different generations from the 19th century up until the 20th century that basically describe public art from one family, which is a fascinating thing. And Philadelphia has this deep, deep history. So the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Art for the Fine Arts, one of the schools that I went to, um, was the oldest art school, the oldest museum in the country, and the that place, because of budget cuts, has been under major, major strain. And so, and even in front of their very fabulous Frank Furness building, which is very unique, there's a bunch of large scale sculptures. But there's also Claes Oldenburg. He made a clothespin, which I walked past every day when I was on my way to high school. It was probably about a 50-foot um, Corten steel uh, clothespin, that if you looked at it from the side, the way the pin that keeps the two pieces of the wood together make a 76. Okay,
clever,
so
clever.
so it's clever, but it's also looking at the common object, which is what Oldenburg was known for, and elevating that common object to the point with a pop art context, um, in the line of artistic history. So I think that is just a few of those kinds of major um, public art examples in Philadelphia, whereas in Boston, it's a little bit more conservative in that way. And it also has the puritanical aspects to it,
Mm,
which are, we don't really have time to be able to dedicate to the arts because we're working. And that it's just crazy,
that's
but
funny. That's
it's
funny.
what it is. It's what it's
Mm,
always been. And so, but I think that it's changing. There's now a Boston Triennial that is now
mm,
trying to reinvigorate um,
mhm.
a different kind of a different generation, a new generation's work, which is great. And there are other examples of this that have happened on the East Coast and other different places that basically push up um, the public art aspects of it. Kansas City is another place where this is very strong. You'll be in the city and you'll see a lot of public artwork. Now, a lot of that is left over from the 19th century notion of commemoration of men on horseback and stuff like that, which Philadelphia also has. It's got Joan of Arc in gold, which is a beautiful sculpture, but it's equestrian sculpture, um, which now some of the best known public artists are reconfiguring old Confederate sculptures, Confederate commemorative memorial sculptures to new pieces, cutting up the bronze, re-putting them together. And this is Carol Walker, for example. And these kinds of reconfigurations is a way of being able to sort of mirror our time, is a way to be able to say that the public art is evolving. And that's important. When it comes to Truth Lost at Sea, it's a totally different paradigm because it's spectacle and because it has legs. It actually goes from one place to another place. Um, and the idea of that is that you can't all live in New York, you can't all live in Boston. So let's bring it to you. Okay, just like you vote in Towson, Maryland, and I vote in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, but we have separate physical places. So how do we make those things be connected? And the way I'm trying to do that is by establishing the fact that we need a symbol to rally around. And that's why we're doing this conversation.
So, so I want to kind of bring it home now. If so, someone who's watching this and thinking I should do something. So, John, as you know, one of the problems is the funding for public arts has disappeared, and that's a different funding for the arts in general and arts education, all that. That's a different show, and it's one I want to figure out. But
Mhm.
for this project, they're watching this, they love this idea, they want to support us, they can't stroke a big check, they're not a big funder, but we've set it up so everybody can give $100. Like if I have 500 people that give $100 a piece, then you can get to building because that's our total, that's our fabrication budget to get the thing started. So what I want to do is I want anybody watching this, and it's reading because we've been writing a lot as well, to go to trutheverywhere.com/partner or look at the site if you're not familiar with it. We've got buttons all over the place to donate. Put in $100. Put in $100 and you know that you've been a part of this project and we appreciate that. And John, just real quickly, we're not making any money on this. The whole idea is we need to get this out. And I love the for the people, by the people aspect of this, and that everybody is contributing to this project.
So it doesn't have to be $100. I mean, you can put in a little bit less if you can.
Yeah.
People are struggling out there because the eggs cost too much. So
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So
But
we
what is truth? What is
what's
truth?
truth worth? worth $100.
I think it is.
Yeah, it is. John, thank you so much. Talk to you next week.
You will.